The elevator hummed as it carried me up to the 40th floor, my reflection staring back from the polished steel doors. David Harlan, IT security specialist, married 12 years to a woman who apparently needed just one night with her CEO. The words still echoed in my head from our phone conversation an hour ago. "Don't be dramatic, David," Elena had said, her voice carrying that dismissive tone I'd grown to recognize. "It's a business dinner. Max wants to discuss the merger privately." Maxwell Duval, the Golden Boy CEO who'd swept into Meridian Financial 6 months ago, bringing his perfectly styled hair and his perfectly rehearsed smile. Elena had mentioned him exactly 47 times in the past month. I'd counted. The penthouse door clicked open as I inserted my key. Our apartment stretched before me, all glass and chrome and expensive furniture that Elena had chosen without consulting me. She wasn't home yet, which gave me time to think. I poured myself a scotch and settled into my home office, the city lights twinkling below. My fingers moved across the keyboard almost automatically. 12 years in cybersecurity had taught me that people always leave digital footprints, even when they think they're being careful. Elena's laptop sat on the kitchen counter, still warm. She'd left in a hurry, apparently. Her phone was synced to our home network, and she'd never bothered to change the passwords I'd set up for her years ago. Why would she? I was just David, the tech guy who fixed her computer problems and made sure the Wi-Fi worked. The first thing I found was her calendar. Project Tokens, Max, appeared 17 times over the past 6 weeks, always during hours when she'd told me she was in regular meetings. My chest tightened, but I kept digging. Her text messages painted a clearer picture. Max's name appeared constantly, mixed with heart emojis and messages that made my stomach turn. "Can't wait for tonight," from 3 hours ago. "David's working late again," perfect timing, from last Tuesday. But it was the email thread that really caught my attention. Elena and Max weren't just having an affair. They were planning to use their relationship to push through a merger that would eliminate half the staff at Meridian Financial. Elena would get promoted to vice president of operations. Max would consolidate his power, and hundreds of people would lose their jobs, so these two could play house. I leaned back in my chair, swirling the scotch in my glass. Elena thought she was so clever, so untouchable. She had no idea that her husband spent his days protecting companies from people exactly like her. She had no idea that I knew every trick, every vulnerability, every way to turn someone's digital life against them. My phone buzzed. A text from Elena. "Don't wait up. This might run late." I smiled for the first time in weeks. "No problem," I typed back. "Take all the time you need." Because while Elena was busy with her business dinner, I was going to map out her entire empire. Every connection, every secret, every weakness. By morning, I'd have enough ammunition to bring down both her and her precious Max. The city hummed below as I got to work. Elena wanted to play games? Fine. But she'd forgotten one crucial detail. I wrote the rules for this particular game. The Meridian Financial Building rose like a glass monument to corporate greed, its 42 floors housing some of the most ruthless people in San Francisco. I'd visited Elena's office exactly 3 times in 12 years of marriage. Today would be different. I'd spent the entire night gathering intelligence. Elena's email account had yielded a treasure trove of information. The merger documents were all there, including the list of employees marked for termination. The affair was documented in embarrassing detail through her messages with Max. But the real prize was her correspondence with Andre Kellerman, Meridian's legal counsel. Andre had been covering Elena's tracks, helping her manipulate quarterly reports to make the merger look more attractive to the board. He'd also been helping Max hide some questionable stock transactions. These people thought they were untouchable, protected by their expensive suits and corner offices. They were about to learn otherwise. I walked into the Meridian lobby at exactly 8:30 a.m., carrying a messenger bag and wearing the kind of generic business casual that made me invisible. The security guard barely glanced at my visitor's badge. Elena had put me on the permanent list years ago, back when she still pretended to care about our marriage. The elevator carried me to the 38th floor, where Elena's department sprawled across half the building. I could see her through the glass walls of her office, gesturing animatedly while talking on the phone. Probably to Max, planning their next move. "David?" Nicole Chen appeared beside me, Elena's best friend and the head of HR. She looked surprised to see me. "What are you doing here?" "Surprising Elena," I said, giving her my most innocent smile. "She's been working so hard on this merger. I thought I'd bring her lunch." Nicole's expression flickered. She knew about the affair, of course. Elena told her everything. But she also knew that I wasn't supposed to know. She's in meetings all morning, Nicole said carefully. Maybe you should call first. I'll wait, I said, settling into one of the leather chairs in the reception area. I've got time. What I actually had was a laptop and a wireless device that could intercept network traffic. While Nicole fidgeted and tried to figure out how to warn Elena without being obvious, I was quietly penetrating Meridian's internal systems. Their security was laughable. Most companies focused on keeping outsiders from getting in, but they rarely considered what someone could do from inside their network. Within 20 minutes, I had access to the executive email server. I found Max's inbox first. The man was even more arrogant than I'd imagined, sending messages about the merger as if it were already approved. He referred to the employees who would be terminated as redundant assets and joked about cleaning house. But it was his correspondence with Richard Blackstone that really interested me. Blackstone ran Titan Capital, Meridian's biggest competitor. Max had been feeding him insider information about the merger, apparently planning to jump ship once the deal went through. I smiled as I forwarded Max's entire correspondence with Blackstone to the Meridian Board of Directors, the SEC, and 3 financial journalists I'd researched that morning. Then I sat back and waited for the fireworks. They didn't take long. Elena's phone started ringing at 9:47 a.m. I watched through the glass as she answered, her face going pale. She hung up and immediately called Max, her gestures becoming more frantic as she talked. By 10:15, Max himself came storming onto the floor, his perfect hair slightly disheveled. He and Elena disappeared into the conference room, along with Andre and 2 other executives I didn't recognize. At 10:30, the shouting started. I couldn't make out the words, but I didn't need to. The merger was collapsing in real time, and Max was realizing that someone had outplayed him. Elena kept glancing toward the reception area, probably wondering if I was somehow involved. But I was just the harmless tech husband, reading a magazine and waiting patiently. Nicole approached me again, looking nervous. David, maybe this isn't a good time. Elena's dealing with some work issues. I can see that, I said, gesturing toward the conference room, where Max was now pacing back and forth. Looks serious. It's just business stuff, Nicole said quickly. You know how these corporate things can get? Oh, I know exactly how they can get, I said, meeting her eyes. Especially when people think they can get away with anything. Something in my tone made her take a step back. Good. Let her wonder. Let them all wonder. My phone buzzed with a news alert. The financial blogs were already picking up the story. Meridian's CEO caught in insider trading scandal. The article included quotes from Max's emails, including his charming description of Meridian employees as expendable resources. I stood up, shouldering my messenger bag. You know what, Nicole? I think I'll come back later. Elena looks busy. As I walked toward the elevator, I could hear Max's voice rising to a near scream behind the conference room doors. The merger was finished, his reputation was in ruins, and Elena was about to discover that her affair had cost her everything she'd worked for. But this was just the opening move. Elena thought she could humiliate me with her one-night comment. She thought she could treat our marriage like an inconvenience while she climbed the corporate ladder. She had no idea what was coming next. Elena came home that night looking like she'd been through a blender. Her usually perfect hair was disheveled, her makeup smudged, and her designer dress wrinkled. She found me in the kitchen, calmly preparing dinner as if nothing had happened. Rough day at the office, I asked, not looking up from the cutting board. She stared at me for a long moment, her eyes narrowed. Someone leaked confidential information to the press today. The merger is in jeopardy. That's terrible, I said, adding onions to the pan. I'm sure you and Max will figure something out. Her face went white at the mention of Max's name. How did you? Elena, you've mentioned him 47 times in the past month. 48 now. He must be quite the boss to inspire such dedication. She set her purse down carefully, studying my face. David, what do you know about what happened today? I know that someone discovered Max was feeding insider information to Titan Capital. I know that the SEC is now investigating Meridian's trading practices. And I know that several board members are calling for Max's resignation. I finally looked up at her, smiling pleasantly. But hey, I'm just the IT guy. What would I know about corporate intrigue? Elena's phone rang. She glanced at it, saw Max's name, and let it go to voicemail. It rang again immediately. Aren't you going to answer that? I asked. Your boss might need you. Stop it, she said quietly. Just stop. Stop what? Making dinner? I thought you'd be hungry after your long day of crisis management. She grabbed her phone and walked toward the bedroom. I heard her voice, muffled but urgent, as she finally called Max back. Their conversation lasted 20 minutes, growing more heated as it progressed. When she emerged, her expression had hardened into something I'd never seen before. I know you're involved in this somehow. Involved in what? The leak. The timing is too convenient. You show up at my office for the first time in years, and suddenly our confidential information is all over the news. I turned off the stove and faced her fully. Elena, are you accusing me of corporate espionage? I'm saying that you're not as harmless as you pretend to be. Harmless? I laughed, and the sound surprised both of us. Honey, I've spent 12 years protecting companies from people who think they can manipulate systems for their own benefit. Did you really think I wouldn't notice when my own wife started playing those games? Her face flushed red. I don't know what you think you know, but I know about Project Max, I said quietly. I know about the merger plans, the employee terminations, the stock manipulation. I know about the hotel receipts and the text messages and the 17 secret meetings you've had over the past 6 weeks. Elena sank into one of the kitchen chairs, her defiance crumbling. David, I can explain. Can you? Can you explain why you thought it was acceptable to destroy hundreds of lives just so you could get promoted? Can you explain why you threw away 12 years of marriage for a man who was planning to abandon you the moment the merger went through? What are you talking about? I pulled out my phone and showed her Max's email to Richard Blackstone, the one where he discussed joining Titan Capital after the Meridian acquisition was complete. He was never planning to stay, Elena. You were just a convenient tool. She read the email, her face growing paler with each line. This can't be real. Oh, it's real. Max has been playing you from the beginning. The affair, the merger, the promises of promotion, it was all part of his exit strategy. Elena's phone started ringing again. This time it was Nicole. Elena ignored it, but I could see the wheels turning in her head. She was starting to realize how completely she'd been outmaneuvered. What do you want? She asked finally. I want you to understand that actions have consequences, I said. You thought you could humiliate me, use me, treat our marriage like a joke while you pursued your corporate fantasies. But you forgot something important. What? I'm very good at my job, Elena. And my job is finding vulnerabilities and exploiting them. Her phone rang again. This time it was Andre, probably calling with more bad news about the SEC investigation. Elena let it ring. The merger is finished, I continued. Max's career is over. The SEC is going to find irregularities in Meridian's books that will keep them busy for months. And everyone in the financial district now knows exactly what kind of person you really are. You can't prove I was involved in anything illegal. Can't I? I showed her another email, this one between her and Andre, discussing how to hide the true cost of the employee terminations from the board. Conspiracy to commit fraud is a serious charge, Elena. She stared at the screen, her hands shaking slightly. You're bluffing, am I? Why don't you call Andre and ask him how his day went? Ask him about the FBI agents who visited his office this afternoon. Elena's face went completely white. The FBI, corporate fraud investigations, tend to escalate quickly once they get started, especially when there's clear evidence of conspiracy. I walked over to her, keeping my voice gentle. You wanted one night with your CEO, Elena? Congratulations, you got it. But that one night is going to cost you everything you've worked for. Her phone started ringing again, but she didn't even look at it this time. She just sat there, staring at nothing, finally understanding the magnitude of what she'd lost. I went back to preparing dinner, humming softly to myself. The night was still young, and I had more work to do. The next morning brought chaos to Elena's carefully ordered world. I watched from the kitchen as she fielded phone call after phone call, each one bringing worse news than the last. Max had been suspended pending investigation. Andre was refusing to take calls from anyone at Meridian. The board had voted to postpone the merger indefinitely, but Elena wasn't going down without a fight. I know you're behind this, she said, cornering me as I prepared to leave for my own job. I don't know how, but I know it's you. Elena, I think the stress is getting to you. Maybe you should take a few days off. Don't patronize me, David. I'm not stupid. No, you're not stupid, but you are predictable. She grabbed my arm as I headed for the door. What's that supposed to mean? I looked down at her hand on my sleeve, then back at her face. It means that everything you're going to do next, I've already planned for. Every move you think you're making independently, I've already anticipated. You're insane, am I? Let me guess what happens next. You're going to try to pin this on me. You'll claim I hacked into Meridian's systems, That I'm some kind of corporate saboteur. You'll probably try to get me arrested. Elena's expression told me I was right on target. The problem with that plan, I continued, is that you'll need evidence, and any investigation into my activities will also uncover yours. Are you really ready for that level of scrutiny? I gently removed her hand from my arm. Have a good day at work, honey. Try not to get indicted. I left her standing in our kitchen, her face twisted with rage and frustration. But I knew she wouldn't let it go. Elena had never backed down from a fight in her life, even when she was clearly outmatched. That afternoon, I got a call from my boss at CyberShield Security. David, we need to talk. Can you come in early? I knew what this was about. Elena had made her move, just as I'd predicted. She'd probably claimed I'd used my position at CyberShield to hack into Meridian's systems. It was a logical accusation, and it might have worked if I hadn't been prepared for it. Of course, I told my boss. I'll be right there. CyberShield's offices occupied 3 floors of a downtown high-rise, filled with the kind of security equipment that most people only saw in movies. My boss, Patricia Wong, met me in the main conference room, along with 2 other executives I recognized from company meetings. David, we've received some serious allegations about your conduct, Patricia said without preamble. Elena Harlan contacted us this morning, claiming that you used your access credentials to hack into her company's systems. That's a very serious accusation, I said calmly. What evidence did she provide? She claims to have proof that someone with your skill set penetrated Meridian's network and stole confidential information. I nodded thoughtfully. Patricia, how long have I worked for CyberShield? 8 years. And in those 8 years, have I ever violated our ethical guidelines or misused company resources? No, you haven't. That's why these allegations are so concerning. I opened my briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. I thought Elena might try something like this, so I prepared a complete audit of my activities over the past month. Every system I accessed, every client I worked with, every hour I billed. It's all documented here. Patricia took the folder and began flipping through it. This is very thorough. It should be. I also have security footage from our building showing that I was here, working on the Henderson Industries penetration test, during the time when Elena claims I was hacking into Meridian's systems. I pulled out another set of documents. These are the logs from that penetration test, signed off by Henderson's IT director. You can verify them independently. The other executives exchanged glances. They were starting to realize that Elena's accusations weren't going to stick. There's something else you should know, I continued. Elena Harlan is my wife. We're currently going through some personal difficulties, which I believe is motivating these false accusations. Patricia's expression softened slightly. David, why didn't you mention that when she first called? Because I wanted you to evaluate the evidence objectively, without being influenced by our personal relationship. I stood up, gathering my documents. Patricia, I've dedicated 8 years of my life to this company. I've helped protect dozens of clients from exactly the kind of corporate espionage Elena is accusing me of. I would never compromise CyberShield's reputation or violate the trust you've placed in me. I believe you, Patricia said after a moment. But David, if your personal life is affecting your work environment, we need to address that. I understand, and I want to assure you that this situation will be resolved very soon. As I left the CyberShield offices, my phone buzzed with a text from Elena. Nice try, but this isn't over. I smiled as I typed back. You're absolutely right, it's not over, but you're not going to like how it ends. That evening, I put the next phase of my plan into motion. Elena thought she could use my own employer against me? She thought she could destroy my career the way I'd destroyed hers? She was about to learn that I'd been playing this game much longer than she had. Elena's desperation was becoming palpable. Over the next 3 days, she made increasingly frantic attempts to salvage her situation. She hired a private investigator to dig up dirt on me. She contacted every journalist who'd covered the Meridian story, trying to spin herself as a whistleblower rather than a conspirator. She even reached out to Richard Blackstone at Titan Capital, apparently hoping he might still be interested in the merger. None of it worked. The private investigator found nothing because there was nothing to find. The journalists weren't interested in her version of events because they already had the real story. And Blackstone wouldn't take her calls because Max had thoroughly burned that bridge with his insider trading scheme. But Elena's most desperate move was also her most dangerous. She decided to go public. I was having lunch at a downtown cafe when I saw her on the Financial News Channel, giving an interview to Amanda Rodriguez from Channel 7. Elena looked polished and professional, Every inch the wronged executive fighting for justice. I believe my husband orchestrated this entire scandal to destroy my career, she was saying. David Harlan works for a cybersecurity firm, and he has the skills and access necessary to hack into corporate systems. Amanda Rodriguez leaned forward with interest. That's a serious accusation, Miss Harlan. Do you have proof? I have circumstantial evidence that I've turned over to the authorities. But more importantly, I want people to understand that this merger would have created hundreds of jobs and strengthened San Francisco's financial sector. Someone with a personal agenda destroyed that opportunity. I had to admire her audacity. Elena was trying to rewrite history in real time, turning herself into the victim and me into the villain. It was a bold strategy, and it might have worked if she'd been dealing with someone less thorough than me. I paid for my lunch and walked back to my car, already planning my response. Elena wanted to play this game in public, fine. But she'd forgotten that I had access to information she'd assumed was safely buried. That evening, I called Jamie Chen, an old friend from my early days in tech. Jamie now ran a small but influential blog called Silicon Scandals that covered corporate malfeasance in the Bay Area. David, I saw the news about your wife, Jamie said when he answered. That's got to be rough. It's about to get rougher, I said. Jamie, I have a story for you. But I need you to verify everything independently before you publish it. What kind of story? The real story behind the Meridian financial scandal. And it's bigger than anyone realizes. I spent 2 hours walking Jamie through everything I'd discovered. Elena's affair with Max, the planned employee terminations, the stock manipulation, Max's deal with Titan Capital, Andre's role in covering everything up. I provided documentation for every claim, along with contact information for sources who could verify the details. This is incredible, Jamie said when I finished. But David, if I publish this, it's going to destroy your wife's career completely. Her career was already destroyed the moment she decided to prioritize her ambition over basic human decency, I said. I'm just making sure people understand what really happened. And what about your marriage? I was quiet for a moment. My marriage ended 6 weeks ago. I just didn't know it yet. Jamie's article went live at 6 a.m. the next morning. By 7 a.m., it had been picked up by 3 major news outlets. By 9 a.m., Elena's phone interview was being replayed alongside audio clips of her conversations with Max, discussing which employees to terminate and how to hide the true cost from the board. The contrast was devastating. Elena on camera, presenting herself as a principled executive fighting corruption. Elena on the audio recordings, laughing about firing a single mother of 3 because her salary was inefficient. I was in my office at CyberShield when Elena called me, her voice shaking with rage. You recorded my private conversations? Elena, you're on speakerphone in my office. Maybe you want to call back when you're calmer. Don't you dare hang up on me. How did you get those recordings? The same way I got everything else. You left digital footprints everywhere, and you never bothered to secure your communications properly. This is illegal. You can't record someone without their consent. Actually, California is a 2-party consent state, which means I couldn't record your conversations without permission. But I didn't need to. You recorded them yourself. There was silence on the other end of the line. Your phone automatically backs up voice messages to the cloud, I explained, including the messages Max left you and the messages you left him. All I had to do was access your cloud storage account, the same account you asked me to set up for you 3 years ago, using a password you've never changed. You son of a... Elena, I'm going to stop you right there. You're already facing potential fraud charges. Do you really want to add threats and harassment to that list? I could hear her breathing heavily, trying to regain control. Here's what's going to happen next, I continued. The SEC investigation is going to expand to include your role in the conspiracy. The FBI is going to want to interview you about the stock manipulation scheme. And every news outlet in the city is going to want to know why you lied during your television interview. David, please, we can work this out. We can go to counseling, No, Elena, we can't. You made your choice 6 weeks ago when you decided that one night with your CEO was more important than our marriage. Now you get to live with the consequences. I hung up the phone and turned back to my computer. Patricia Wong appeared in my doorway a few minutes later. David, I just wanted to tell you that the company stands behind you completely. After seeing the news coverage this morning, it's clear that your wife's accusations were baseless. Thank you, Patricia. I appreciate your support. Is there anything you need? Time off, counseling resources, legal assistance. Actually, there is one thing. I'd like to take a few vacation days next week. I have some personal matters to wrap up. Of course, take all the time you need. As Patricia left, my phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. You think you've won, but this isn't over. I still have cards to play. E. I smiled as I typed back. Alina, you're out of cards. You just don't know it yet. But even as I sent the message, I knew she was right about one thing. This wasn't over. Alina was cornered now, desperate and dangerous. And desperate people sometimes did unpredictable things. I was going to have to be very careful about what came next. Alina's final gambit came exactly 1 week later, and it was more desperate than I'd anticipated. She'd apparently decided that if she was going down, she was taking me with her. I discovered her plan when Patricia Wong called me at home on Friday evening. David, we have a problem. Someone broke into our offices last night. What was taken? That's the strange part. Nothing was taken, but someone accessed your workstation and copied files from several client accounts. The security footage shows a woman matching your wife's description. I closed my eyes, feeling a familiar mix of admiration and disgust for Elena's audacity. Patricia, I need you to do something for me. Don't report this to the police yet. Give me 24 hours to handle it. David, if Elena stole client data, we have to… She didn't steal anything useful, I interrupted. But she thinks she did, and that makes her dangerous. Let me talk to her first. Patricia reluctantly agreed, and I spent the next hour preparing for what I knew would be my final confrontation with Elena. She'd broken into CyberShield, hoping to find evidence that I'd used company resources to hack Meridian. Instead, she'd copied a bunch of penetration test reports that proved exactly the opposite. But Elena was desperate enough to try using them anyway. I found her at the Skyline Bar on the 42nd floor of the Meridian building, sitting alone at a corner table with a martini and a laptop. She looked terrible. Her usually perfect appearance was disheveled. Her makeup couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes, and her hands were shaking slightly as she typed. Working late? I asked, sliding into the seat across from her. She looked up, her eyes hard with determination. David, I was wondering when you'd show up. Patricia called me about the break-in. That was sloppy, Elena. The old you would never have been caught on camera. The old me trusted people. The old me believed that marriage meant something. I gestured to her laptop. What are you working on? Another television interview? A tell-all book about your evil husband? I'm preparing evidence for the FBI. Proof that you used CyberShield resources to destroy Meridian Financial. Evidence like those penetration test reports you copied. The ones that show I was working on legitimate client projects during the time you claim I was hacking your company. Elena's confident expression flickered. There's other evidence. Things you don't know about. Elena, I know about everything. I know about the offshore account you opened in the Cayman Islands to hide your kickbacks from the merger. I know about the fake consulting fees Andre paid to your shell company. I know about the stock options Max promised you in exchange for insider information. Her face went pale. That's impossible. Those transactions were encrypted. Encrypted with a password you used on 3 other accounts. Max Elena 2023. Really, Elena? You couldn't have been more obvious if you'd tried. She stared at me for a long moment, then laughed bitterly. You know what the funny thing is? I actually loved you once. Before you became so ordinary. Ordinary? I leaned back in my chair. Elena, I just systematically dismantled a multi-million-dollar conspiracy, destroyed 2 careers, and turned your own ambition against you. What exactly is ordinary about that? You're still just the IT guy. You'll always be just the IT guy. And you're a corporate criminal facing federal fraud charges. I'd rather be ordinary. Elena closed her laptop and stood up. This conversation is over. No, Elena, it's not. Something in my voice made her sit back down. I pulled out my phone and showed her a video file. This is security footage from the Meridian parking garage, taken 3 days ago. It shows you meeting with Richard Blackstone, trying to sell him the same insider information that Max had already provided. The same information that's now worthless because the merger is canceled. Elena's eyes widened as she watched herself on the screen, handing Blackstone a manila envelope. Attempted corporate espionage, I continued. That's a felony, Elena. Combined with the fraud charges you're already facing, you're looking at serious prison time. You can't prove what was in that envelope. I don't have to. Blackstone is cooperating with the FBI investigation. He's already told them exactly what you offered to sell him. Alina slumped in her chair, finally understanding that she was completely trapped. What do you want, David? I want you to understand something. You thought you could humiliate me, use me, discard me when I became inconvenient. You thought I was weak because I didn't play corporate games or chase promotions or step on people to get ahead. I leaned forward, keeping my voice quiet. But Alina, I was never weak. I was just focused on different things. While you were learning how to manipulate people, I was learning how to protect systems from people like you. While you were building your network of corporate allies, I was building skills that could take down entire organizations. I get it. You won. Congratulations. This isn't about winning, Elena. It's about consequences. You made choices, and now you have to live with them. I stood up, leaving her sitting alone with her laptop and her ruined dreams. The FBI will probably want to talk to you again soon, I said. I'd recommend getting a good lawyer. You're going to need one. As I walked toward the elevator, Elena called after me. David, wait! I turned back. What happens now? Now you face the consequences of your choices, just like everyone else. The elevator doors closed, carrying me away from Elena and the wreckage of our marriage. As the city lights blurred past the windows, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. Elena had gambled everything on her ambition, her affair, her corporate schemes. She'd bet that she could manipulate and discard people without consequences. She'd been wrong. The merger was finished. Max's career was over. Elena was facing federal charges, and I was finally free. Some games, it turns out, are worth playing after all. Noak mufti, what is thou stable? No it san, kundotumuftaftud.